Hello Nigame fans, these next 2 weeks will be the last decent window for developers to get their games out in 2024 before Game of the Year season and where people go off on break, so it's a mega-sized week of new releases beginning with Beat the Humans, a turn-based tactics title in which you play as aliens fighting off invading humans. Curiously, the aliens here sure look like orcs to me, and you have to protect planets, plural, in turn-based tactical combat, so there's a bigger strategy layer as well and looks great. Archons is another Bullet Heaven style roguelite, but with a twist, featuring 2 playable characters, but where in single player you are controlling each using separate thumbsticks in a manner similar to Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons. There are of course skills and abilities that are relative to the position of the 2 characters, and it looks like an interesting twist on the formula. Your mission is to uncover the source of a mysterious corruption that is plaguing an alien planet, fighting off swarms of enemies and massive bosses, along with a variety of progression systems in Essence to enhance your weapons and powers, and blood runes to sacrifice health for devastating strength. Along with other currencies to collect and spend, the developer has also confirmed 2-player local co-op and does look like fun with a friend. This video is brought to you by MISTERY, a multiplayer co-op and social deduction game that has up to 9 players working together to cooperate, craft, survive and escape a crumbling site after a containment breach has occurred, which is currently running a Kickstarter campaign. Think Among Us meets Lethal Company plus SCP Foundation lore and you get some idea about the game, where you have to explore, scavenge resources, craft weapons, and retrieve batteries in this game, using these to charge your lamp to fend off monsters that lurk in the shadows, as well as fight off waves of monsters as you attempt to escape. But beware, since among your fellow survivors, there may be traitors in disguise that are just waiting to strike. Yes, indeed, there is a traitor element in this game, so you need to watch your back and report if anyone is acting suspiciously, which might be more difficult than you might think with the number of players, the various roles and characters, and the different objectives to accomplish, where it is among this chaos that the monsters thrive. There are more than 10 unique characters, each with different specializations like gunner, engineer or doctor, each having special abilities suited for different situations. The facility itself is also intriguing, since parts of it will still be functional, allowing you to watch others through monitors, recover resources from locked safe boxes, or trigger electric traps to catch unarmed victims, mixed in with random events that create environmental storytelling to provide something fresh every time you play. This is planned for release in early 2025, so if interested, wishlist the game on Steam, and they are conducting various time-limited playtests every weekend in December, so join their Discord to get updates with the promise of new story cases to be added even post-launch. Here's a newly announced game which is the definition of weird, since Get to Work is another rage game in which you play as a bald man who is wearing rollerblades on all 4 limbs, desperately trying to climb the corporate ladder and survive in today's economy. You're launching yourself off impossible ramps, suspended in mid-air, having to have enough speed and momentum in order to successfully make the jump, or risk falling to your doom. This does have the involvement of some huge creators, including Seadog VA as the narrator in this game, and does come to us from Isto Inc., the developer behind the very interesting factory building automation title Atrio the Dark World, so it's a departure from that, but this is prime streamer bait as rage games tend to be.
Good luck.
Love indie games? Sign up to my newsletter to get a weekly dose of what's hot, along with some news and of course, weekly game giveaways, so if interested, link is in the description below. Another curiosity is the 1.0 release of Magenta Horizon, first released on Steam in 2023, so it has been about 18 months in early access, a 2D action platformer with gameplay inspired by spectacle fighters. So think Devil May Cry but 2D and you get the idea. You play as a Reaper in a twisted purgatory, having been exiled for 200 years, and after being freed from your sarcophagus, seeks to help a wandering soul get back to Sanctuary. carving a path through demons in the process. Of course, as in character action titles, you will have expressive, stylistic combos and unique playstyles, juggling and pogoing on enemies while utilizing environmental hazards for efficient crowd control and maximum lethality, all as you attempt to get the triple S rank, and with 5 escalating levels of difficulty, does provide replayability. The art style is of note, looking to pay tribute to prog rock album covers, and is effective and makes it stand out, with the surreal visuals and grotesque imagery effectively conveying the sense of place, and is somewhat of a hidden gem, so do check it out. I previewed the Edge of Allegoria when looking at upcoming games of the month, being a throwback Japanese-style turn-based RPG, which does look like a monster taming game like Pokemon, but is not, since you are slaughtering these monsters instead, Dragon Quest style. Despite the cutesy visuals, and side note, they have absolutely nailed the Pokemon Red and Blue kind of look. This is not meant for kids, and does include dark humor and vulgarities, and might just fill that gap for an older demographic. You'll travel far and wide across the land, battling a diverse array of enemies and harvesting their body parts for financial gain. And with over 144 unique enemies to face, each with its own item drops, there's plenty to discover here. There's also a mastery system for skills and equipment, where the more you use something, the better you'll get at it. So with 80 skills and almost 150 pieces of equipment, you'll see why there's plenty of options here. Weird characters and NPCs will be front and center as well, so for old heads like me that grew up with classic Japanese RPGs, I'm sure that this will be of interest. I do have a soft spot for shoot 'em ups, since this was a genre that I played on the Genesis and in arcades when I was a kid, which is why Smaller Games begins with AIRANBLADE, a classically designed one of these with a 2.5D look, which is inspired by titles from the 80s and 90s, so this is exactly my jam. The story, while not the most important part of games like this, has Aaron being created and sent to Earth many years ago to help in its development, but thousands of years later, the planet is degraded and is being destroyed, so she now has to fight against human civilization. I'm not sure if it's a translation issue or something, but that seems kind of odd. But anyway, the shooting looks good and does have massive bosses to battle, along with bullet hell inspired action and more, and will be for fans of the genre. I was pretty surprised to see the monster hunting action-adventure RPG Dauntless pop up on the list of new releases on Steam, since it was an Epic Games Store exclusive and launched since 2019. So a 5-year gap between that and a Steam release is interesting, and then I realized that it is because they are also releasing a new season named Awakening to go along with it. For lack of a better term, this is essentially Monster Hunter but free to play, in which you take on the role of a slayer tasked with protecting humanity from the monstrous behemoths that threaten to devour it. All the hits are here, including hunting these monsters down and crafting new armor from the parts harvested from them, with preparation, skill and reflexes being necessary if the hunt were to be successful. Co-op is of course a focus, where you can team up with other slayers to take down behemoths, with seamless cross-play and cross-progression, as well as features like parties and guilds for your crew. This has been pretty well received on other platforms so far, so if you are PC only but refuse to use the Epic Games Store, now's your chance to dive in, although I do wonder how difficult it will be for new players to get into this given the 5+ year history of the game. A twist on traditional fighting games is Diesel Legacy: The Brazen Age, a 2v2 diesel punk brawler that brings fresh innovation to the genre. You will immediately see that it's a 2D fighter but with 4 characters at once, which looks like chaos, having 3 lanes to battle on, so position is especially key. There's quite the variety in characters as well, each with their own abilities and attacks to be used and comboed in different ways, and looks pretty awesome. Being a 2v2 fighter, even if your character is knocked out, you are not out of the fight and can play as a special ghost to support your teammate, keeping all players engaged until the match is over, and thus have the modern requirements for games like this, such as rollback netcode, but it's always tough for indie fighting games to break through, so here's wishing them all the best. A not-so-indie title is Dogman Mission Impossible, a game based on the Dogman IP of children's graphic novels, itself a spin-off of the Captain Underpants series, so there's certainly brand recognition here. This is a 2D platformer with over 50 levels as you explore iconic locations from the series and can effortlessly swap between 3 characters, each with their own special abilities to tackle different scenarios. Having puzzles, platforming, light combat elements, and even boss fights, all with a wonderful cartoony look. I'm not sure who this is targeted at, whether it's meant to be a game for kids or if adults can enjoy it as well, but it does look to be on the simpler side of things, even if it does have fantastic presentation. But if you grew up with the series or your kids love it, this might be of interest.
Come forth, adventurer.
Are you ready to shape your destiny in a world teetering on the edge of
Chaos.
Dustgrave is a Sandbox RPG where your choices define your legacy. Set in a land devastated by a mysterious plague and the collapse of the ruling empire, you will have to forge your own path in this open world where every action impacts the narrative. When the developers talk about it being a sandbox, they mean it, since you're able to create your own character and decide your role, either the path of the righteous or that of a darker side or even somewhere in between, set in a world where morality is fluid and action talks. Combat here looks interesting in that CRPG way, since it is tactical and turn-based but is not bound to a rigid grid, so you have the freedom to play with skills, abilities and items. It also has some immersive sim influence in the stealth mechanics that lets you sneak, steal or assassinate your way through encounters and gives you a different way to solve problems. So if you're a fan of this genre, do check it out, but also note that it will be an early access release. Entropy Survivors is yet another bullet heaven roguelite, but has an interesting dual character setup in a sword-wielding mech and a sharp-shooting space frog, where the latter is set on top of the former, and together they blast their way through the forces of Entropy. This is a spin-off of a third-person, behind-the-back roguelite shooter, Shoulders of Giants, so like many roguelite titles, this is a natural second step, since I believe most of the assets from enemies to weapons should have been created in the original game, so taking that and making a new title makes financial sense. There will be meta progression systems from run to run as you unlock customization options to change your gear to suit your playstyle, and even has up to 4-player co-op support, where each player controls their own frog plus robot combination, looking pretty good, so let's hope they manage to find the fun in this. One recent example of games as a platform is Escape Simulator, a first-person puzzle adventure game that seeks to emulate real-life escape rooms and has been steadily releasing paid DLC themed around different things, and the next is Mayan. This takes you deep into the mysterious Mayan jungle, where you encounter ancient temples, treacherous waters and vibrant wildlife, all while solving puzzles and uncovering hidden secrets. In some ways, it is more of the same, but the different theme and setting does give it enough variety to be of interest, where if you have not played the base game, I would highly recommend giving that a try as well. Ion Shift self-describes as a hardcore 2D platformer in which you play as an alien creature having to kill and destroy everything in its path in order to escape. The developer says that this is for fans of Katana Zero, so of course that perked up my ears, and you can certainly see the influence here as the creature zips around and murders everything in its path. Enemies include soldiers, deadly turrets, laser drones, traps, hazards and more, where you are navigating the giant spaceship and trying to find the way out. Critically, there is friendly fire among your enemies, so they can end up killing each other, something that you need to exploit if you want to make it safely through. Climbing on walls and ceilings is new as compared to its inspiration, which certainly adds to the combat element since you need to figure out where to position yourself, using precision, skills and your reflexes if you want to be successful. Of course, this reminds me of Carrion, in being a so-called reverse horror kind of game that has you playing as the alien monster instead, but it is more action focused and you seem to be more fragile as well in the face of rifles, but certainly looks like fun. Just a quick one here since we have the PlayStation ports of Lorelei and the Laser Eyes this week, a puzzle adventure game with horror overtones that comes to us from developer Simogo, best known for Sayonara Wild Hearts, and is of note since some people have this on their list of the best games of the year. I know because a few of you have replied directly to my email newsletter and told me, so while this is relatively going under the radar with just 1,200 Steam reviews as of recording, I do think that there's something here even if it isn't usually my cup of tea. From the developer of Roki comes Mythwrecked Ambrosia Island, an adventure game that whisks you away to a sun-kissed Greek island where the Greek gods of mythology are struggling to recall their memories. As Alex, a rookie backpacker, you're tasked with helping the gods rediscover their past and reconnect with one another. You have your handy-dandy Ambrosidex device used to locate and collect lost treasures and memories, but also to catalogue who you have met, being a helpful tool in your quest. By returning these mementos to their rightful owners, you'll trigger flashbacks and uncover the story behind the island's curse, revealing secrets and re-establishing relationships between the characters. Of course, it is not just fetch quests, but also puzzles and narrative choices to be made, and looks like it's for fans of the genre. This week also sees the release of Nikoderiko The Magical World, a 2.5D platformer that certainly has those Crash Bandicoot vibes, but this time starring a pair of treasure-hunting mongooses as they attempt to stop the nefarious Baron Grimbaud and protect a mystical island. It can be played solo or in co-op, with the gameplay not just being limited to side-scrolling platforming, but also minecart rides, world chasers, underwater odysseys, and even behind-the-back 3D segments. With 7 fantastical worlds to explore, you'll discover an array of adorable characters, formidable bosses and hidden treasures, as well as secret collectibles and new paths to uncover. You can also ride animals as mounts, Donkey Kong Country style, each having special abilities to be used in different scenarios, along with classic collectathon style gameplay, and looks like an excellent one of these. I thought it was rather strange for this to be released on consoles first and then later on Steam, but it currently has a Metacritic score of 80, which is pretty good, so if you love the genre, do pick this up. A completely not indie title is Path of Exile 2, the sequel/parallel path release that comes to us from indie darling Grinding Gear Games, whose company formation as a team of action RPG fans making a completely free and fairly monetized action RPG is inspirational, but of course their success led to them being acquired by Tencent, hence it is no longer indie anymore. But as probably the largest competitor to Diablo, of course this game is of note. According to early reviews, this is the Dark Souls of action RPGs in the sense that it is quite challenging and there is no difficulty selection levels so to speak of, so if you want a challenge, this is the title to play, and since it's free, why not? A neat looking city builder title is Polismos, which transports you to ancient Greece, where you assume the role of a leader tasked with guiding a promising city-state to prosperity. As you navigate the intricacies of governance and diplomacy, you'll need to balance the needs of your citizens with the demands of external relationships, construct magnificent structures, unlock innovative technologies, and manage a complex economic system to ensure the city's success. You can choose from over 150 historical city maps, including Athens or Sparta, or develop your own city on a secluded island where each location provides unique challenges and opportunities. You have to tend to the needs of your people, otherwise they will turn against you, so you need to decide on the trade-off between economic growth and the well-being of your people. There's also diplomacy and relationships with other cities around you, but they might also be a threat and looks like it's for fans of the genre. Rapture Recovery Squad is a dungeon-crawling, deck-building auto-battler that takes you on a thrilling adventure beneath the surface of the earth, where you lead your team through treacherous routes to uncover the source of the impending apocalypse. As a dive operator, you need to activate skills and place new team members down between rounds, watching as your divers battle it out with the enemy in fast-paced tactical combat. Each dive has its own unique challenges and layout, requiring you to plan your route and scout ahead to ensure your team's survival. The praise system adds an extra layer of tension, since the longer you spend in the depths, the greater the threat you attract, adding an interesting risk-reward system. The more dangerous a mission is, the greater the rewards, and with multiple dive leads to choose from, each with their own skills and abilities, does provide variety in every playthrough and looks like the hidden gem of the week. We also have the Switch port of Savant Ascent remakes this week, an action shooter title that is halfway between a remake and a sequel of the original Savant Ascent, which is more than 10 years old at this point, coming to us from developer D-Pad Studios, best known for Owlboy, and of course their pixel art. As you ascend through the tower, you need to blast through enemies to unlock new abilities and powers, using these to advance even further up. This includes 3 distinct modes, including Classic, Remix and Survival, so there are different levels of challenge, so if you're a fan of the developer, be sure to pick this up. A fun-looking and fast-paced snowboarding racing game is Slopecrashers, one that is a throwback in more ways than one, and just looks like fun due to the birds as playable characters and the core snowboarding style gameplay. Yes, of course, this looks to evoke SSX and those games with a dose of kart racing as you attempt to make it down the slopes as quickly as you can. There is a focus on chaining together stunts and combos to achieve extra speed boosts, along with items to collect, which you can then use to attack your opponents. But if competitive mode is not your style, there is a stress-free mode that looks like more of a time trial experience. Of course, there will be multiplayer support so that you can play with friends, but even solo, due to its campaign and arcade modes as well as level variety, does look like a fun racing game experience. It is 4 days to the release of Spire Horizon Online as of recording, but the developer has not released a gameplay trailer, but you can find playthroughs of its demo on YouTube, and my god, they have done it in making a very wow looking MMORPG in which you play as a skeleton, explore a vast and meticulously crafted open world featuring various regions, each offering unique challenges and adventures. Choose from 25 unique classes, each with their own special abilities and playstyle, and engage in epic battles against 150 types of different monsters. Also having immersive quests, challenging dungeons and dynamic events, so all the elements that an MMO should have. This developer also made Spire Horizon, which released in February 2024, and this game looks similar in some ways, but the concern with an indie MMO, of course, is player population and content, since you cannot have an MMO with nobody playing, and that is not even talking about server costs and content update cadence. So it's impressive, no doubt, but we'll see if it manages to get and sustain a player base. Horror games are a dime a dozen these days, but you'll see why I included Unknown Tapes in this video, since yes, of course, this has dinosaurs. Told using a found footage kind of technique, the game is set in a modern-ish world where dinosaurs roam free, with your main goal being to survive and not get eaten by these creatures. In horror game fashion, there are stealth segments, so you need to hide, as well as to avoid making too much noise, all while you make your way through the town. It does also feature real-time voice detection, which means that dinosaurs can hear your voice when you talk or shout in the real world, and will react accordingly, which is borrowing from more modern horror titles like Don't Scream, but still, dinosaurs are a nice alternative to spirits and monsters, so I wanted to give this a shout out. A fun-looking party game is What the Puck, a multiplayer action title that combines chaotic gameplay with customizable characters and a variety of mini-games. In some ways, this is a real throwback since we don't really get games like this anymore, so think of Fall Guys, but where every level is standalone without the Battle Royale aspect, and you get some idea. It has co-op for up to 8 players and will have different levels and minigames, with the developers promising regular updates as the game continues to evolve in early access, which will be based on community feedback. This one's for indie game developers. The free indie game marketing resources are ready, so sign up via the link in the description below to get it in your mailbox. It's a huge week already, but the best is yet to come, so let's continue with Symphonia, a music-themed precision platformer set in a world where music is the source of life and energy. As Philemon, a mysterious violinist, you're tasked with recruiting talented musicians to form your new orchestra to revive the declining world. This is a non-violent platformer, so it is all precision platforming without combat, but that doesn't mean no challenge, since there are plenty of pits and spikes to fall into, but the movement and traversal looks fluid and fun. Also of note is the soundtrack, crafted by renowned composer Olivier Esmen, with each concert centered around one of the families of instruments, string, brass and woodwinds, to provide the backing track to the gameplay, and looks like it's for fans of the genre. A cool, weird roguelite simulation puzzle title is Uncle Chop's Rocket Shop, one that has a bit of an attitude as well with its writing, that has you playing as Wilbur, a mechanic on an asteroid-bound service station where you spend your days repairing spaceships to make ends meet and have to pay the rent, otherwise you'll risk being killed. With a range of tools, diagnostic devices and parts at your disposal, you'll be tasked with correcting faults in procedurally generated spaceships, having to refer to the manual in that keep talking and nobody explodes kind of way, with the time pressure of repairing as many ships as possible to earn money. On top of the rent, this can be used to purchase upgrades as well, with some of these persisting across runs, so it's a very unique and interesting roguelite title that is unlike other games in this space, and along with a cast of weird characters, makes this a cannot miss. An awesome early access release is Overthrown, and while it doesn't look like it, this is a city building game at its core, but of course does not have that traditional god game overhead perspective, where you are instead controlling your own character in third person as you run around on the map. Your goal? Establish a kingdom in a perilous wilderness and defend it from mutants and bandits roaming the land. You build, gather resources, farm the land and more to turn your fledgling realm into a powerful and self-sustaining kingdom, attracting more followers to your banner, but equally will have those that want to overthrow you as well. Building in this game is the most unique aspect, since you can lift and move entire buildings, but also objects like trees, along with the more farming sim-like aspect of gathering resources yourself and third-person combat, which looks like fun. To add to the madness is up to 6-player co-op, with some cool features like dynamic weather and a day-night cycle which affects the behavior and difficulty of the game and looks like a very promising entry. Hot off the presses is the news that Chrono Sword is releasing in early access this week, a Souls-like action RPG with an isometric view, where you must navigate between the past and future to uncover the secrets beneath the surface. The city, once vibrant, has become a living hell where monsters and madmen roam free, where you can travel through the time gate to move between the past and future, where past choices may change the future, but the opposite may also occur, where future time paradoxes alters the past. Combat looks to be a highlight, with weighty feeling combat due to its Souls inspiration, but it might be a little bit more forgiving and fluid with the array of attacks and abilities available. There's also an almost puzzle-like aspect to the exploration, since you need to figure out the whole time travel thing, along with cryptic NPCs to get to know, where your actions can affect them as well, such as turning them hostile, and has been one of my most anticipated titles, so I'm excited to share the news. The most wishlisted game of the week is Anton Blast, a Wario Land style side-scrolling 2D platformer that has similarities with Pizza Tower from 2023, in which you play as Dynamite Anton, or his cranked out co-worker Annie, using your hammer to destroy hell itself after Satan stole your booze. If you're not familiar with this style of game, this includes platforming and wrecking shop as you move towards the end of the level, upon which you will hit a button which triggers the destruction of the level, meaning that you need to do the entire thing in reverse once again, which provides new challenge and is a lesson in level design. The art style is pretty sick and is a throwback, along with the exaggerated animations and emotions of the characters, and is probably the last entry of the year to be in running for Game of the Year. Watch this video for the best upcoming pixel art games of 2025.